Hey there, friends. Hello. Dana here, otherwise known as Dana Spirit Butterfly, offering new moon forecast, energy wisdom communicated through myself as spirit medium, which of course means many things. And if you've watched my videos before, you'll hear me explain what a spirit medium does in essence, but of course it's actually a challenge sometimes to say exactly what a spirit medium does, because the best way to know is actually to have a session. The spirit energy that moves in and through all of us, we all have equal rights to it. We all can access the divine. The divine is not something that you have to be a priest ordained in order to be able to receive. It is here, it's in the weave in and through us. In fact, when we read psychically, we can attune to the spirit energy in someone and perceive certain things about them. All of us have that very human ability in the subtle senses, rather than fixed senses, subtle senses, physical senses, subtle senses. But mostly, spirit and spirit form is an agent in our lives, and when we understand it better, when we create some space to attune to the frequency, for lack of a better word, of spirit, to attune to the energetics that may be termed spirit, we start to see differently. We start to feel other sensory experiences, and it starts a journey of soul reclamation, soul remembering, soul returning. And this has an impact on so many of us. I just wanted to mention that just briefly because, you know, often when we spirit mediums speak to the public about what we do and what we offer, the response can be sometimes very mixed, and often we're pushed back into something that's unnecessary or perhaps a luxury. And it's a bit disheartening to hear that, because we do not exist except because of spirit. Our whole experience of life is here because of spirit. A lot of our conversations that need to be had with the spirit world, need to be had with the spirit self, need to be had on a soul level. The conversations at a soul level can significantly move some boulders and barriers in our lives. And that's not to say that's the only remedy, because of course it's not. But it is actually a fundamental conversation that, in a fashion, has been taken from us through the lens of religiosity, through dogmatic approach to our souls. And it makes sense that so many of you will have a mixed feeling around spirit technology, spirit conversations, and what that means. It makes sense. It makes so much sense if you just peer back a little bit further into our ancestral storylines, our histories. We all have them, and they all impact us subtly in the subtle fields. The technology impacts us. It impacts us unconsciously when we're not available for those conversations. And the availability is the emphasis I want to make here, because as we move into the energy forecast, we're going to talk about a few things that are currently blocking or distorting people's own spirit, their own spirit, spiritual wellness. You know, when we look at the society that we're in, and we see depression, and we see nervous system disorders, and we see, you know, people operating from fear. A lot of these can be remedied by an adequate resource that is spiritual in nature. And as I remember one of the podcasts I was listening to a few days ago, it was a birth keeper, a doula of 50 years of experience, and she was saying about when a baby is born, the mother's ability to reach into a steady and stable spirituality, whatever that is for her, can make the difference between alive, well, and evolved birth, and one that needs medical intervention. I'm just going to leave that there for now. as I just want to go into acknowledging I'm on Bundjalung country, paying my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging. I don't have to do this, by the way, to be a spirit medium, but I do this particularly because I live on this land, and with that comes land spirit technology. So acknowledging those traditional custodians that have not only believed in spirit but have listened with spiritual ears to caretake for this land for thousands and thousands of years. A continuous culture of land care. So acknowledging and paying my respect to the Indigenous traditional custodians. Bundjalung country, Arakwal nation. I'm not born from here, I was born in Ghana country, so I'm also going to pay my respects to the custodians there that have given me the juice and the well-being, enough of a well-being to be able to be this here and now for you, for me, for us, for we. I'm also going to acknowledge the magic mountain, Mount Chinkogan. I live within her space, and she also provides us with a resource, has amazing wisdom to tune into if you're active in your spirit technology. She will speak to you, she will show you things about your land and your landscape and help you to live better on your land. You will have, wherever it is that you are in the world where you're listening to this, you will have your own resources. You may have simply a great ocean to tune into. You may have a river system or a current that moves through your energetic landscape. You may have just a beautiful grove of trees. You may have, I don't know, a park somewhere. You may have some rich wealth and wisdom that's right underneath your feet on the land that you actually sleep on. When you're active in spirit, you can attune to the land and you can listen to what it has to share with you. It can be a resource, and it can be a powerful one for health and healing, for your immune repair, for systemic wellness. If you'd like to learn more about that, then please tune into some of my courses. I inspire you. Hopefully I'm inspiring you to do that. It can be the beginning of activating those conversations. But for now, and Spirit's just reminding me, please stay. We're going to do the energy forecast. It's just that I'm doing my due diligence to myself to make sure that you know that I'm available as support to you. And also we created these courses so that you, in your own time, at your own pace, can start the dialogue for yourself in your own way, in your own lounge room, in your own bedroom, for crying out loud. Like, you can do it on the street, in a park with your mobile phone. But please, www.patreon, patreon.com/Dana Spirit Butterfly, that's DANA Spirit Butterfly, is where I have those courses and also ongoing support there. You can also check in some of the links that I'll attach down the bottom of the video. All right. Just putting that out there because, that's what we do. There are a lot of things that we do, but for now, let's tune in to the landscape of the electromagnetics that we live in. And when I talk about the electromagnetics, you'll have an awareness that the planet that we live on rotates around the solar giant, the sun, and that creates an electromagnetic pulse or conversation. As Spirit was always showing me, what decides what land masses stay and turn into mountains and what land masses become river systems is actually an electromagnetic conversation. And I'm not a specialist in that, but I'm attuned to Spirit enough to be able to feel, sense and know that there's technology there that we should be listening to that will help us much better to live the life that feels robust and abundant for us, and also help us with sleep. If you have any issues with sleep, that may be one of your conversations necessary and needed to have. So major players, relationship with the sun, of course, relationship with the sun, but we also have these other astrological giants and beings that also impact the electromagnetic availability and resource for us to navigate certain themes. And when we talk about themes, I'm not an astrologist, but Spirit, my work of spirit medium, Spirit asked me to get across the lunar cycles and also some of the solar cycles so that we can start to, me and my spirit consciousness, my spiritual guides and wisdom keepers that help me with my life, can move in a way that allows us to start to be this energetic resource for others, but also for the ecology that we're in. It's amazing, the synchronicities and the coincidences that just suddenly appear, like the free stuff that I'm sitting on a chair at the moment. I got it for free last week. It's the best, most comfortable thing ever. I can move it around my garden, and I got a sense to turn left where usually I would go straight, and there I found it. It was just sitting there because I was listening. I could feel the pulse, I could feel the sense, and as soon as I saw it, I could also feel that it was mine because it actually told me energetically. I know that sounds like woo. It kind of is, right? It's kind of non-scientific data, if you will, but also I'm sure science can give you a label for that. I mean, science already has a label for what's called remote viewing, which is a psychic skill. So it happens, right? It happens. So new moon, lunar cycle. What are we looking at? The lunar cycle, we're heading into a new moon. We're currently in a dark moon. I'm recording this on a dark moon on the 20th of October. Tomorrow late evening here in Australia, on the 21st of October, the new moon appears, and it'll be a new moon in Libra. I'll just quickly take you through these dates, and then we're going to give spirits messages. Because some of you will be interested in maybe writing this down. If you're on the YouTube thing, I usually write that down for you physically anyway, but helps us to map as I speak. I get a sense of the mapping, and then spirits messaging can come through. So 21st of October in Libra, an air sign. Very shortly afterwards, on the 23rd of October, the sun moves from Libra to Scorpio, a water sign. And around this window of time, close to the end of October and early November, and it's very vague for a reason, is a particular, very interesting spirit window. Many of you will call it Halloween. Halloween is not the grassroots, evolutionary, much longer traditional term and celebration that all of us on some level and some space on the planet would have celebrated around this time of year. Of course, Spirit's just reminding me, I'm talking, of course, about the Northern Hemisphere because seasonally the seasons are different here. And so these seasons, these celebrations, Halloween was originally a seasonal celebration to mark the passage of autumn, moving into summer, and that period, moving into winter, wrong hemisphere. And during that period of time, there was a cyclic shift that moved from a lot of light to decreasing light, and also history will show a significant increase in the number of community deaths. And this had everything to do with the shifting of light, the changing of seasons, and the moving into winter, where there was less food, illness would begin to come in and take over. People's psyches are less resilient when there's less light. And so there would be a volume shift into more illness and disease and death. During that window of time, there was a celebration, an acknowledgement, if you will, that acknowledged the passing of ancestors and also recognized the journey of the dead into the spirit world. And so while we're in the southern hemisphere here, we're actually heading towards the window of Beltaine. We traditionally, so much of the traditions of the Western European culture moved obviously through the whole colonialized process and moved the ancestry into more pockets. Also adding to that, we have globalization that has also contributed to the increase of awareness of Halloween. So a very special window during that period of time. We're not going to talk too much about that in this particular video. There's more spaces where we can and will talk about that, and we do talk about that. But for now, very special window between the new moon and the full moon, because that period of time is where the spirit world moves differently, is more accessible, and more people are a little bit more available for these conversations globally. After that, we have a full moon in Taurus on the 6th of November. Very shortly after the full moon, we'll have a Mercury retrograde, which is worth mentioning. A lot of other planets go retrograde and direct across different periods of time, but the Mercury retrograde is a well-known period of time where there are certain things to watch out for. And if you want to know more about what to watch out for a Mercury retrograde, again, I'll direct you to my Patreon, where I have seasons and cycles paid, very low cost paid membership tier. And there I'll add more information. I do add more content and information about what to do and how these impact us. Right now we're offering a different conversation, although we often do talk about this in past videos. We have Mercury retrogrades happen usually about 3 times a year, so these are not infrequent things, and it serves us all simply to be aware of the electromagnetic potential and possibilities. Being aware of it helps us to create space for the potential for certain arrivals of certain things. And when I say that, spirits remind me the sacred feminine way. When we talk about the sacred feminine way, what we're really talking about is actually the rebalancing from a hyper masculinized focus, front-facing worlds to one that honors the embodied, evolving, emergent worlds. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, in so much as Spirit's given me 3 tips to focus on across the next cycle that talks a little bit about this as a phenomena. But we mention this because when you're aware of these things, it's not about becoming fixed and rigid and controlling your awareness at the level of the mind to say, hey, there's Mercury retrograde is coming up, therefore everything's going to go wrong. Bit of catastrophization, they're not really helpful. But what the Mercury retrograde awareness is helpful for is maybe understanding that when certain things don't work straight away, that you let go of control a little bit and you let go of demanding that things operate exactly the way that you're intending them to be. And when you ease up on that perfectionist puddle, on that need to be in control and to have everything all lined up and for everything to be exactly as you've mastered that it must be, then in the space in between is life. In the space in between is where the mystery and the magic can show you new things. This is where a lot of the psychic wisdom starts to move from the hidden into the known. So we mentioned these things for you to not be fixed and rigid about it, but to be aware that as the movement happens, which the Mercury retrograde happens on the 9th of November and goes for about 3 weeks, it will hopefully be an opportunity for you to, instead of trying to hold everything and keep everything tight, actually relax a little bit and maybe bend time a little bit. So maybe rock up a bit early just to see what happens. Have you ever done that? Just rock up early and see what happens. Who cares if people aren't expecting you? I don't know, your world, your experience. We're all supposed to be sovereign, right? Supposed to be. Do you like my earrings? Just noticing. I like them. They're my new Isis design for the Rose Path. So the cycle ends on the 20th of November, and it will be a new moon in Scorpio. And at that moment, there'll be an alignment between the moon and the sun being in the same sign. Important only in so much as sometimes you'll just feel certain things during that period of time a little bit more strongly. And so, the emphasis here, before I move on to the 3 things that I just want to mention that will help you with the technology that's moving through this cycle, because there's a lot, the cycle we've just come from. I don't know about you, but there's a part of me that just gave up. I planned all these things and I was like, yeah, cool, I can do all these things, and nothing seemed to work. And I don't say that to be, negative. It's more that I kind of let go of being in control, and Spirit had said that these things would be here in order to gift me, us, we talked about it last energy forecast, to gift us with the awareness that things that are heavy and dense and that are maybe attracting things that are undesired, sometimes behind that is something better. And it's so hard to trust that that's true when you're in the thick of it. Only time shows you whether or not something better is coming. And what matters is not that you hold fixed and firm and insist on certain standards. I mean, you're welcome to have standards. We encourage you to have an awareness of your value system. But beyond that, we are in a collective field, and the collective field involves other people. And that is exactly the reason why we're in these dialogues. At the moment, these dialogues, what's happening on the planet, Gaza, the Ukraine, there's so many different places where there's stuff going on that is not okay. It's not okay on any level, shape or form. Like, you would think that as a civilization we would have learned from the past, but no, there's still these bigwigs that are creating problems and then doing the big boy thing, which is undermining the genuine conversations that are wanting to be had. And we're seeing this in the way that people are showing up to protest. Spirit is reminding me the protests, we're not going to focus too much on this right now because there's a lot that we could say about this, but the act of protest is a sacred right. It's a voicing. It's the thing that when we talk about the sacred feminine rising, you know, the shifting, the rebalancing, for us to actually create space for the heart technology, for the humanity, for the lived in experiencing, to create space for that, we actually sometimes need to hold those in power accountable to their decisions, because while they're in power, they're too busy trying to create and control paradigms, while we're the ones living it on earth. We're the ones actually impacted by it. And if we are not using our birthright, which is the right to speak, you have it, then it's kind of our fault if we're not doing anything about it. And the worst thing that we can do is nothing. And it doesn't matter what you do. But what matters is that you're listening and you're paying attention, and within the scope of what's available to you, you are making your voice obvious. And this might simply just be you talking about it openly. It might simply be about you knowing that there's people out there who are aggressive, dominant and controlling, and they don't get to do that to you, and they can't do that to you unless you consent. And consent looks like so many things. For now though, I'm going to turn my attention now to what Spirit asked me to say, as kind of a recommendation or a flag with you as to what might be worth your attention for the next cycle. And you know, I've only just started working this way last cycle, so forgive me. It's, you know, just one of the ways that Spirit likes to work through me. We like to change it up a bit because my energy does well when we make changes. So number 5, life path, change is good. Okay, so the first thing we're going to say, and I'm going to emphasize this, is don't worry about the hurdles until they are here. And I know that that's tough in the environment that we've been raised in. Our environment in the most recent past has emphasized so much on risk assessment, on insurance, making sure you have it, making sure you're planning for the things that are coming. And I don't know about you, but I've paid insurance for decades and often I've never used it. And that doesn't mean that you don't get to have insurance. You're allowed to have insurance. But what Spirit's saying is, when we're talking about the shift from this blinding consenting to stuff that actually we're not really verbally consenting to, because we're not paying attention, we're not listening, we're not noticing how these things are impacting us and having taken the time to voice it. It's really important for us to be aware that we actually have more resources than what we think. And when we're always giving resources to things that haven't happened, then we end up siphoning from our resource here and now. And this might look like, in a crude example, that I hardly have any wealth and hardly have any money, but I'm putting my last few cents into insurance. And you can do that if you like, but as Spirit's reminding me, I went to a local conversations last month, I think, which was hosted by an organisation. I can't remember the term, what they called. I'll have to look that up. But it was a death conversation. And there were people sitting around who were talking about death and passing, and quite a few of the members actually work with death and dying, and also with the administration of the elderly to help them with planning for the eventuation that they're going to die. Because let's face it, it's true, we're all going to die, and there's stuff that lingers once we pass, and often it's the family members remaining that need to take care of that. And so I went there, Spirit told me to go there, and it felt right, so I dropped into the conversation. And while I was there, quite a few of them, professionals in their field, talked about how there used to be this advertising on TV that would talk about funeral insurance, and it would be played during the time when retirees typically watch TV, and so many people pay it. And what they said and what they were saying was that there are so many people who pay it. They pay their last cents into this funeral insurance. And then at the time of the funeral, when they've passed, the funeral insurance barely covers the costs, or even doesn't even meet the costs of the funeral. And that there are actually better options. There are better options out there. But you have to do your research, and you have to actually engage in the conversation. And, you know, you can be forgiven for not getting engaged in a conversation around your own death, for sure, you can. But it's the fear and the advertising that drives all this money towards this model that actually doesn't deliver what it promises, and it doesn't care because the person paying it is dead. And so this is one very crude example of what happens when we're putting our last cents into something because we're told that we need it, when actually, I mean, death of course is going to happen, but there are so many ways to host a funeral. There are so many options that happen post passing. Just an example, there are so many other options, but that's the one that came. So hurdles come all the time. But please don't invest in the hurdles until they're here. And the reason why we're asking that is because there is a great divine intelligence moving through all of us at the moment that are helping us do something called switching timelines. Now, switching timelines in itself, it sounds very woo-woo and it sounds very fancy, but in a practical sense, what it means is that you as an evolutionary being with a magnetic electromagnetic field, as you move through space and time, you are in concert and conversation with the collective field, with the beings in the ecology that you're in. When you're moving as an individual forwards, you have a particular point of magnetism that creates a particular future. And that future is never fixed. It's never been fixed, because also as you're heading towards that future, your soul calls to you soul lessons. And those soul lessons inspire your evolution. They inspire your change. And as you step towards those points of evolution, provided you stay central earth, so with yourself, listening to your body, listening to your heart, listening to the intelligence, trusting that you are smart because you are, trusting that you do have intelligence because you do, and leaning into that and giving yourself some time, some grace period to adjust to the things that come, the hurdles that come, then stepping through that window, stepping through that portal, jumping over that hurdle actually leads to a new timeline. If you are investing in hurdles that aren't there, you're creating a different energetic with your electromagnetic field. And so what it does is it warps energy. It disperses your energy. Your timeline that you're heading towards, that you're supposed to head towards now, is confused. And there are beings on the planet that want you to be confused because it creates a money wealth system for them. So we'll say it again. Don't worry about the hurdles until they are here. Trust in the divine intelligence that you are. You have enough to deal with all of the hurdles that come your way. And this is the universal truth. If you do not have the resources here and now, trust that they are coming. And the hurdle that comes, if you can't meet it, maybe it's not the hurdle for you to jump over. Maybe you need to say thank you, but no thank you, and invest in a new timeline by making a different choice. We become really fixed in our trajectory, really fixed in the way that we focus. When I tune into people's energy fields, most of their energetics are forwards facing and pushing. And this again distorts timelines. You step out of the divine timeline grid and you end up with death and despair. You end up with all of this stuff that feels heavy and difficult to move. And you end up blocked and you end up unavailable for the life that you're here to have. And so don't worry about the hurdles until they are here. The second thing is to trust in the initiations. Now, yeah, we'll say that again. Trust in the initiations. It's kind of similar to the hurdles, but initiations are something that most of the modern cultures okay, just starting again, or not starting again, but like resuming what I was saying before. Sorry about that break. Technology. Yeah, Spirit's reminding me. We're talking about powerful stuff. So yeah, we're speaking about trusting the initiation. And when we want to talk about initiations, there's so much that could be covered here that remind us that there's less time created to celebrate the becoming of us. And when we talk about the becoming of us is really the revealing of more of who we are, more of how we show up through the process of meeting initiations. And initiations, you know, you can use the term in a watered down sense where you can say, okay, well, you know, I just kissed a boy for the first time, that's an initiation. And yeah, it kind of is, right? It is an initiation. But even that, as Spirit says, you know, like, it seems to be such a subtle thing, but when you're kissing someone for the first time, it's also just before that happens, there's so much uncertainty and you've had so much awareness given to you about what it's supposed to be that you have pictures in your head that sometimes make it almost terrifying to experience. And then when you have the experience, sometimes it's great and sometimes it really isn't. And so it's a good example of what an initiation is. But when we're talking about the next cycle of initiations, I don't know about you, but I've already kissed boys. So, you know, that's not really a new thing for me. It's not really an initiation that I need. But initiations can take a whole lot of form and a whole lot of shapes. And when we're talking about becoming more actually is where your soul has maybe an awareness of all the potential that you could be. And then life delivers you an opportunity to express yourself along those lines, to see whether or not you're ready, to see whether or not. So as I was saying, trust in the initiations that are arriving for you. They do so in divine timing. And time is an interesting construct and one that we navigate from a perspective of historical remembering or structure that was given to us with the Gregorian calendar. And time in itself actually moves very differently, and so to initiations. The initiations that arrive for us arrive in a timing when it's ready for us to move. Whatever it is that may be stuck or whatever it is that we may be ready for and may be hidden from. They come because it's time and because there's something else that needs to move within us in order for us to become more. And so trust in the initiations that are here now for you. They are here to awaken more of you in the life that you're living. So go slow and be aware of how this energy moves for you. The last thing I'm going to mention just briefly, because we don't really want to talk a lot about this until you get a better sense of what it actually means. We mention it because it's true. There is a lot of sorcery around at the moment. There's a lot of manifestation of energies that maybe shouldn't be here and maybe aren't ready to be here. There are a lot of people who are accessing the energy grids and are starting to weave with the magic that's available for us to weave with, but the energy is not necessarily ready to hold and to stay here. And so when you start to shift from a fixed physical reality and attune to the subtle, which we're all starting to do more and more since intellect and intuition started to activate more with the information superhighway, and people's deeper curiosity and chronic independence is the word that Spirit gave me, there comes with a certain freedom to play with energy. And so many are playing with energy at the moment without having conscious awareness of what that actually means and how it impacts us all. And this talks not just to the hidden societies that are weaving magic and that are using the weight of their technology as a collective to move certain pieces of the puzzle, but it also talks about individuals who are not yet ready to find their sacred voice and are rushing time. And we'll leave that there. The consequence and the reason why we mention it is because the best defense to this type of energetic confusion and chaos, because that's what it does, it actually adds and contributes to more confusion and chaos at the level of psyche. So as we start to think and tune into the less physical forms of us, we start to feel more energy and start to have ideas that weren't there before. And sometimes it does lift certain things out of our DNA, but as it does, sometimes we're not ready to face those things yet because we haven't created the structure and form, or maybe have the mentorship that we need in order to be able to move through these initiations. And so the confusion and chaos is here. It just is. There's not a lot we can do about it right now, but your best defense is self-awareness, to always have a steady practice of know thyself, to journey within, and to speak more closely with your own allies. And that's not just your physical friends and family who you trust, but it's also, what do you trust about the spirit world? Like, what actually is your language? It's your responsibility to find out. And when you do, and you sit in attunement with that because it's in alignment with your true self, then it works for you. And you'll find you'll do better across this period of time. It'll be easier to discern what's right for you and what's not. And so with that, I'll wrap this video up. Thankfully, the video's held for this particular fraction of the last part of my conversation with you. Much love to all of you. Compassion is the thing that rises in me. It's a tough field out there, but you know, you have people in your life. We all actually do. Whether they're trustworthy or not is a different conversation perhaps, but either way, trust in your own conversation and know that there's resources and support for you through me perhaps, or through other practitioners. But there's more of us out there than perhaps you're finding for very, very interesting reasons. Trust there's more support for you than what you're currently leaning into. And the only way that you'll find that out is actually through the initiations. So trust that the things that are coming for you are actually guiding you towards where support is for you, where maybe your resistance is blocking your own potential. And know that there is a lot of guidance also in the confusion and chaos, but knowing what resonates for you is the trick. And a good solid spirit practice grounded in your body will help you with that. And so, you know, I have my courses that I offer. There are so many things that you can do. If you feel curious, please book a session. Let me read for you. You can do so via my website, www.danaspiritbutterfly.com, and there's a book now button. All right. Otherwise, find me on Patreon, please. All right. We're done. Much love. Until next time.